2025 was the most exciting year in sim racing history. So much historic stuff happened, from the biggest hyped releases we've ever seen to the biggest flops we've ever seen in sim racing. We saw exciting, brand new, innovative hardware to companies, big sim racing companies, being sold. We saw massive brands redeem themselves, and we saw massive brands and franchises seemingly withdraw from sim racing. It was a huge year, and it sets the tone for 2026. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back and we're going to look at the year starting in January, and it's going to be astonishing how much changed. We're going to start with Assetto Corsa Evo. This launched in early access on the 16th of January 2025. Right at the beginning of the year, it was a talk of the town, and it was controversial because there was a limited amount of content in Assetto Corsa Evo in early access, but that was similar to what Kunos had done in their previous titles, Assetto Corsa Competizione and Assetto Corsa. But here's the difference. This game had been hyped like nothing else. Influencers, sim racing press outlets were treating this as like the second coming of sim racing. There had been some really irresponsible reporting, I think, on free roam that had kind of been blown out of proportion because they'd shown a lot of free roam before early access launch. And I said at launch, don't expect free roam to come in 2025. Stay tuned in this video to see whether it did come. But when Assetto Corsa Evo launched in early access on Steam, it was pretty much a disaster for most people because the service didn't work. Everyone was surprised that actually this was going to be an online game where you needed to be online to progress. That was very surprising. Also, it didn't work well on lower spec machines. Now, for myself personally, my 4090, I had a great time on Evo at the beginning, time trialing. In my head, I'd put this as like, this is going to be a fun time trialing game. I don't care about bad AI. I don't care about the limited features of tracks and cars. I want to enjoy the driving experience. And it did work well. But for the vast majority of people, it was a letdown. And it was a sign of something to come in 2025, which was the year, I think, of like irresponsible hyping, lack of critical analysis, lack of like good journalism, I would say, in terms of, you know, really assessing products and sims coming out and explaining to people what may be good and what may not be good about it. Instead, we just got like pure hype trains. Now, something else that released in early access in January 2025 was Tokyo Xtreme Racer. This was a reboot of a classic game, and it was kind of also embroiled in a bit of a legal issue with a Canadian version of the game that had to be taken off sale. There were some legal issues there. But Tokyo Xtreme Racer launched into early access as a much more refined and acceptable product. And again, this shows early access can be used to launch something too early, but it can also be used in a responsible way to launch something and grow with the community. So we'll come back to early access, but Tokyo Xtreme Racer was another game that launched earlier in the year. Now, also in January, we got some big news from Fanatec. They withdrew their sponsorship from the GT World Challenge. Fanatec had sponsored the GT World Challenge for a long time, and it kind of was a association we took for granted that sim racing was there. Sim racing was mainstream. Sim racing was close to real racing. You saw all the Fanatec, you know, stickers on the car and everything. But in January 2025, Fanatec withdrew. And I think this represents also in some ways a withdrawing of sim racing away from the mainstream into itself, into the niche. That again, we're going to talk about with other updates and sims that happened in 2025. But Fanatec withdrawing, remember, I flew over to Fanatec in 2024, interviewed the CEO about some of the shambles that was happening with Black Friday orders, and I think I was shining a light on stuff that no one had shone a light on. Again, because the journalism is lacking in sim racing, no one was questioning how people weren't getting orders for months and months and months. But Fanatec were acquired by Corsair in 2024. That continued in 2025, the Corsair takeover. And in early 2025, we start to see a little bit of a readjustment of where Fanatec sits in sim racing, no longer at the top of the pecking tree. Something else that happened in January that's also going to be indicative of the year was a cheating scandal. This time it was Ferrari Esports. They had a disqualification in the Daytona 24 event in around 18-19 January 2025, where basically one of their drivers was going to have a big crash and they quit out of the game to avoid getting the damage. There were so many cheating incidents in top level sim racing esports in 2025, and it all started in January. And there was a massive brand involved in Ferrari. It's highly embarrassing for the brand. There were lots of apologies, but it shows esports to me is a little bit different to sim racing. Esports is not about realism. Esports is about pure competitive advantage. It's kind of like Formula One in a way. They're trying to exploit every marginal game, and that's interesting in the pursuit of itself. But I do think it's dangerous if sim racing tries to cater too much to esports, because then sim racing becomes a little bit warped and twisted and away from the vast majority of sim race how they drive. But we'll come back to more cheating in 2025. So remember how I said Assetto Corsa Evo had a troubled launch in January? It kind of went from bad to worse with, you know, player numbers dropping off. Again, the performance was not good on Evo. It was meant to work in VR, but again, unless you had a beastly PC, it didn't really work. Well, something changed in March because Kunos brought back co-founder Stefano Casillo. He rejoined Kunos. This was a big sign that actually Kunos needed to put more investment, more time, more expertise into Assetto Corsa Evo. I genuinely think around this time, the jury was out on Evo, like whether it was actually going to sustain or not. But bringing Stefano back in, reuniting him with Marco Mazzarutto at Kunos was a positive sign for Assetto Corsa Evo, and also was going to try and help them hit that roadmap. Was free roam going to come in 2025? You still got to stay tuned. And then on the 18th of March, we had our first big hardware release of the year, and it came from Moza. It was a Moza mBooster active pedal. This was the first active pedal on the market aside from SIMUCUBE, who are at the top end of the market. This was meant to signal a kind of democratization of active pedals. Active pedals are pedals that have electronics in them, so they can give you ABS, they can give you TC, they can adjust. It's great for accessibility as well. It's great for performance. It's great for running different presets. And this was meant to democratize it. The mBooster came out. I reviewed it. There was a bit of fanfare about it. But then, to be honest, I haven't heard too much about the mBooster since. I haven't heard loads of people are picking it up. It is competitively priced by Moza, but it didn't signal a wave of active pedals in 2025. We didn't see the SimMagic active pedal come, for example, and still the SIMUCUBE active pedals are right there at the top. But the mBooster from Moza, that was a big big first hardware release of the year. And a couple of days later, we saw what I think remains the best early access launch of the year, maybe bar one other we'll get to. And this is Wreckfest 2. Wreckfest 2 came out on 20th of March to very little fanfare. And the early access was fantastic. Again, very little content in terms of cars and tracks, but extremely fun gameplay loop. Runs well on, lower spec PCs. I was running at my 4060 Ti. A really fun game. A million miles away from the likes of Assetto Corsa Evo that was massively overhyped. Wreckfest 2 was underhyped, but that early access continued to improve throughout the year. Then near the end of March, Gran Turismo 7 with its first big thing of the year. And this is, I think, bigger than people give it credit for. Sophy 2.1 came out and allowed you to add Sophy, which had previously been in it's an AI system that had previously been in a few special events. You could now add it in custom races. For me, this increases the playability of Gran Turismo massively, because the Sophy AI is legitimately a much better AI than the default AI, and now you can run it in your custom races. You can run it in more tracks, more cars, than the very limited rollout before. It didn't get a lot of fanfare, but I know there'll be a lot of people watching who've raced a lot against Sophy this year, and that all started in March. Moving to April now, and this is where iRacing responded in a little way to Gran Turismo 7. Again, not a lot of people will remember this, or maybe not a lot of people using it, but I use it quite a bit. This is the iRacing Adaptive AI. So iRacing added Adaptive AI to their build of iRacing, and that means iRacing went from just being really a pure online sim and you can do some offline test driving, to now you can legitimately have fun offline racing AI cars in iRacing with the Adaptive AI. So again, AI was a massive thing generally in the world in 2025, but we started to see it in sim racing in March with Gran Turismo Sophy 2.1, and in April with iRacing Adaptive AI. AI is going to be even bigger in 2026, but it's interesting to see where it started. And April was a big month for sim racing. A lot happens in April, and it starts also with Fanatec with their first big release of the year. Remember, Fanatec has gone through all these issues. I went over, interviewed them. I think they're going to go insolvent. They go insolvent, even though most people are telling me they're not going to go insolvent. But I read the financial statement. Corsair acquires them. And now, what's Fanatec going to do? What's the product lineup going to be? Well, this is the first product. 17th of April, the Porsche Vision GT wheel is the new Fanatec steering wheel. It's a CSL wheel, and it's controversial. It's not as cheap as the McLaren GT3 wheel that's being phased out. It looks nice. It has a very nice Porsche badge, but it doesn't seem that functional. The funky switch is not that good. It doesn't have clutch paddles, for example. The button layout is not very intuitive. It's kind of restrained by needing to be licensed by Porsche and needing to be the wheel in the Porsche Vision GT car. But it comes out. It's a good-looking product from Fanatec, but it's expensive and it's not super functional. Very opposite to the Fanatec McLaren wheel, which we'll come back later to in news in 2025. But that was Fanatec's first blow. They're going to be in the news a lot. Also, tariffs. We have a new government in the USA. We've got more tariffs around the world, and there are tariffs. So we've got GT Omega shuts their US store in mid-April, which is big, and ASETEK stops selling into the USA. So we're seeing sim racing companies really struggle with the tariff situation in the USA. And we see people in the US who've ordered products having to pay more tariffs, and it just is a big question mark over pricing. Was everything going to get more expensive? We didn't know. And then at the end of April, massive, Forza Horizon 5 launches on PlayStation 5. This is big. Shows where Microsoft and Xbox are going. The console wars are dead at this point because you got Forza on PlayStation. We could not have believed this was going to happen years ago. You know, it's just crazy. Forza is one of Microsoft's biggest franchises, but it comes to PlayStation 5, and it's basically the biggest game on PlayStation 5. It's a huge success. It's kind of great for sim racing because Forza Horizon, Forza Motorsport, they kind of represent sim racing. But it's also like, what does this mean for Forza? What does this mean for Xbox going forward? We'll come back to it. And at this point, Forza, by the way, is flying high. Things are going to change. But in early May, 5th of May, Forza launches the Fujimi Kaido map, which is like a legendary Forza track in Forza Motorsport. A very like sprawling, long track. A lot of fan service there. And it kind of feels like Forza is potentially almost on the up against Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo by this point feels a little bit stale. Yes, we've got the Sophy update, but we're not getting new tracks. We're not getting great new cars. We're getting a lot of SUVs and crossovers and stuff like that. And meanwhile, Forza Horizon is massive on PlayStation, and Forza Motorsport launches a legendary track. It feels like this could be a great comeback from Forza Motorsport, but it also feels weird because, again, Forza's on PlayStation 5. There's more Fanatec news as well. They start to release more QR2 versions of their GT DD Pro. Again, it's a big mess for Fanatec with the QR system, the legacy QR1 versus new QR2s, and then the QR2 Lite. People don't really like it. It's something for Corsa to work out, but you can see Fanatec start to work on that, releasing QR2 GT DD Pros. And big news from EA as well. F125 comes out, and then it turns out later in the year there's not going to be an F126. So F125 comes out, but you know, how long is that going to be able to sustain next year? We will find out. And also, EA give up the WRC license. They give it up, and it goes over to Nacon. So Nacon are going to make a WRC game. This is all announced in May. Then we head into June, and there's more cheating controversy on iRacing, this time involving Max Verstappen's team Redline, where they do an exploit where they basically, they teleport to the pits and are able to run an illegal setup for the rest of the Nürburgring 24 hours. Remember, the Nürburgring 24 hours is the next big iRacing special event from the Daytona 24 hours where Ferrari cheated and now Team Redline are cheating. There's a massive controversy. iRacing basically asked them to quit the race halfway through, otherwise they're going to be banned. And Team Redline quit the race. It's a huge cheating scandal. Again, it shows esports, they want to exploit everything. And it seems like at this stage, every big esports event is being exploited. Also, Fanatec do something massive. They firstly expand their warranty to 3 years, which is a big thing I don't think a lot of people talk about. And that's a massive risk, I would say, for Corsair, because Fanatec wasn't renowned for having very good build quality and warranty support previously. And also, Fanatec starts selling on Amazon in June. So 3-year warranty and selling on Amazon, you can start to see the Corsair influence coming through with Fanatec. And near the end of June, something that a lot of people will forget, but I made a lot of content on it, there was a particular daily race in Gran Turismo 7 where there was no driver rating change or safety rating change. In daily race C, they tried something different, and it was a massive week for Gran Turismo. It completely reinvigorated the game, and it was a little bit of a snapshot, a window of what was possible for Gran Turismo 7 later on in the year. So at the end of June, Gran Turismo 7 starts to kind of awake. Remember, Forza Motorsport is looking pretty good, the big rivals here, but now Gran Turismo 7, the beast, is starting to awaken here, and there's going to be more news with GT7 later in the year. Coming into August, which can sometimes be a quiet month, but not for Moza. Moza hit Gamescom hard. They show off Porsche wheels. They show off an amazing looking Lamborghini Revoluto wheel, which we don't see again. Like, we don't see it later in the year. They show it at Gamescom and we don't see it. I don't have it here in the studio, just to let you know, but that Revoluto wheel looks amazing. It looks like the perfect Forza Horizon wheel, for example. So Moza dropped some good news in August. And then we go into September, and the big news has to be the Logitech RS50 launch. Kind of like out of the blue, Logitech launches RS50 at an insane price point, £250 for the base, very competitive bundling with True Force, 8 Newton meters, PlayStation, Xbox, PC. It's a massive product, and it turns out to be one of, if not the biggest sim racing products of the year. That comes from Logitech G in September. And September, we really start to see things escalate. The year becomes a bit crazy now. So Fanatec, there's a little bit of a leak that I report on. There's a leaked GT3 wheel that looks like the same wheel as the Fanatec McLaren wheel that's been taken off service, but without the McLaren logo. So question marks about whether this leak is genuine or whether it's a kind of like it's a fan thing, someone's mocked up, but we'll come back to that. And also, Assetto Corsa Evo 0.3 releases. 0.3 is a big release for Evo. It's been long delayed. Evo's been in the wilderness. It's absolutely memed at this point. When 0.3 comes out, a lot of people make content basically slagging off Evo about how it's a joke, it's so late. Remember, from my perspective, I never expected free roam to come, which has now been knocked off, by the way. I never expected great AI. When 0.3 comes to me, I quite like it. I like the track physics. I like the new cars. There's a decent amount of content like the Red Bull Ring. There's a lot of stuff coming with Evo that looks promising. And this is kind of like the start of the resurgence of Assetto Corsa Evo. But Evo had really dropped off from a big hype, dropped off, and 0.3 starts to come back up again. Right now we're going to hurtle into October and things get crazy. Firstly, Forza Horizon 6 gets announced. I'm actually part of the trailer. I'm in the trailer. They sent me this little postcard here. Thank you for being part in the Forza Horizon 6 reaction video. That's announced. That's going to be a huge game. It's set in Japan, so it's coming to Japan. That's massive for racing, potentially sim racing in 2026. Also, that leaked Fanatec wheel, it gets announced. It's real. It's going to be now just a Fanatec GT3 CSL wheel. That gets announced in early October at a very competitive price point. Almost recognizing that maybe the Porsche wheel is a bit too expensive. They nail it with the new/old/same Fanatec GT3 CSL wheel. Around €200 if I remember. It brings back a classic. And then we hurtle into the Sim Racing Expo. What do we get here? Fanatec again. They reveal their Podium pedals. Controversially, they're not active pedals, but they look like insane pedals. They reveal their Podium DD, very long awaited, 25 Newton meters of torque there. So big products announced from Fanatec. Also, Assetto Corsa Rally out of the blue is announced at Sim Racing Expo. No one expected it. Everyone's like, hang on. You know, Assetto Corsa Evo is kind of on the up, but still is a long way from the hype. What are Kunos doing with Assetto Corsa Rally? It turns out it's done by a different development team, but Kunos are kind of helping with it. So that gets announced, and that kind of breaks the internet because it looks like a very authentic rallying sim. We also get some hands-on footage with Rennsport. We also get some hands-on footage with Project Motor Racing. I tried Project Motor Racing at the Sim Racing Expo, and my video says, this handling is unusual. This game is not going to be for everyone. Some people are going to hate it. Some people are going to love it. I'm not sure anyone else made a video like this. I didn't quite understand it because the handling was very clear to me. It was going to be divisive. The amount of that the tyres play a part in Project Motor Racing was kind of insane to me for a game that was coming out of console because it was not explained at all. But Project Motor Racing is teased again at the Sim Racing Expo, and November is going to be a crazy month. Another product teased in October is the Thrustmaster Raceline load cell pedal, a must-have upgrade for the T598. Surely that's teased there at the Sim Racing Expo as well. But then we go into November and basically all hell breaks loose. On the 13th of November, Rennsport launches. People hate it. In my opinion, Rennsport is a simcade game. It's about online competitive racing. It should really be GT3s and modern cars, and it should be about getting people to race as much as possible online. However, it launches with single player and AI, and the AI is not very good, and it gets absolutely slated. The game looks a little bit weird on PlayStation with motion blur. For me, it looks fantastic on PC. But Rennsport gets slated, absolutely slated. There's some interesting monetization with buying liveries, like livery packs. People don't like it. It gets destroyed by influencers on launch. People do not like it. The player base is not there. The same day, if I remember, Assetto Corsa Rally comes out. Assetto Corsa Rally is almost uniformly loved. It's a really fun experience. There's not a lot of content, a bit like Wreckfest 2, but it's fun to play in Wales or France. Quite actually a decent amount of rally cars. The force feedback experience for me and my SIMUCUBE 2 Pro and active pedals is unbelievably good. I'm absolutely in love. I'm thinking this might be my game of the year. Definitely alongside Wreckfest 2, it's the best early access launch of the year. And then 25th of November, Project Motor Racing comes out. So much hype. It reminds me of Assetto Corsa Evo. Why are people hyping this so much? People want this to be a massive success to the extent they're blinded from the truth. It comes out and the force feedback and handling is very divisive. Some people hate it, some people love it. The tire mechanics are very, very, very important and not explained well. Not explained that you need to go out on hypercars 2 laps to warm up the tires. It gets slated on launch. The people who drive it a lot get to understand it, get to tune the force feedback, and there's actually a good sim underneath it. But as you play it out of the box, most people are going to have a bad experience. So Project Motor Racing gets slated. It gets very toxic. A lot of people cancel their pre-orders. A lot of people kind of want to defend the game, and it becomes very adversarial. So Project Motor Racing rounds out November, and it's ugly. It's a bad taste, to be honest. And Project Motor Racing, they didn't help themselves by overhyping the game. But again, for me, it's a failure of journalism. The same with Assetto Corsa Evo. It's a failure to actually really critically analyze sim racing software and hardware, say what the pros and cons are, try and explain how to enjoy it, who's not going to enjoy it, and not just hype everything up. So I can see it as clear as day. It's going to happen again with new launches. I see new things being teased and it's just pure hype. But anyway, Project Motor Racing. And then we come into December. And it's Gran Turismo 7 who basically come out of this as the king. Because on December the 4th, they release as a double whammy Spec 3 for free, Yas Marina, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, other improvements in the game, and also the Power Pack PS5 only DLC with some unbelievably good handling cars in there, but also a little bit of a letdown in terms of how the campaign actually works. But it's a double whammy by GT7, big new content in there. That just shows you don't need Project Motor Racing on console. You don't need Rennsport on console. You don't need Forza Motorsport on console. Gran Turismo's got you covered. And it's a big... And I was making videos throughout the year saying, I think Gran Turismo's going to win this year because I just think nothing is going to get close to it on console in terms of the accessibility, the ability to play on a controller, the ability to drive so many different cars, the online experience. And I think in the end, Gran Turismo 7 did win console in 2025. And a couple of days later, big news from Forza. Forza Motorsport enters maintenance mode. You couldn't write it. It's almost like Gran Turismo comes out so strong that Forza Motorsport just concedes it. And this has been the big battle for decades. Forza versus Gran Turismo. You've had people almost getting Forza or Gran Turismo tattoos. And now Forza Motorsport, that's one point in the year when they launched Fujimi Kaido, was looking like it was on the up. A bit like Evo ended up on the up and everything, but it just ended up dying. And the Turn 10 team was shifting to assist Horizon 6. Now, this could mean that Forza Horizon 6 is going to have better sim elements in 2026, which could still be a great play by Xbox, but also it seems like we're losing Forza Motorsport from the sim racing ecosystem, and I don't think that's a good thing. But there'll be many people who start on an Xbox and get a Forza, and that's your way into sim racing. Forza Motorsport 3 for me is partly why I'm here now, doing big boy sim racing, because of Forza Motorsport. So then we end up in December, and another big moment for sim racing, because sim racing gets nominated for the Autosport Awards, which is Max Verstappen, Taylor Barnard, and myself. We get nominated for the Autosport Awards, which is still open for voting. So link in the description to vote. Make sure to subscribe. Please subscribe and share this video if you enjoyed this recap of the year 2025. Do you want to see me do more like this? Remember, I release a sim racing newsletter every week. Make sure to subscribe to that. Link in the description. I also do a sim racing show every week. I work with real journalists. This is not AI, this is real journalists doing it. And we cover the real topics and we speak honestly about it. And a lot of other people don't like this. They don't like the fact that we just give the honest takes and we just tell you how it is, like we've done in this whole video here. They don't like that. That's uncomfortable. So if you like it, you want the truth, you want investigation, you want journalism, you want critical analysis, make sure to support me in 2026. And thank you to you as well for everything you've done in 2025. You guys and girls make it possible. And I'll see you in 2026.